I invite you to transform your imagination to a different realm. A rural tranquility where a remote dairy farm lies nestled amongst sprawling fields. Picture a family, the embodiment of resilience and an unwavering work ethic, closely intertwined with their local community. Meet Chloe, a spirited 12-year-old girl who calls this farm her home. She fills her day with her local netball club, her school, and riding her cherished horse. The harmony of crickets and the distant mooing of cows forms the enchanting soundtrack of her idyllic childhood. And yet the tapestry of this childhood would unravel one fateful day when Chloe takes a fall from her beloved horse, leaving her with a head injury that would ultimately affect hers and her family's life forever. In an instant, her rural haven is transformed into the sterile confines of an intensive care unit, where they wage a desperate battle to save her life and then for the next 6 months painstakingly rehabilitate her young body. The abruptness of this transformation is as jarring as it is unexpected, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Ultimately, the day would come when Chloe would return to her rural sanctuary, to the warm and loving embrace of her family, and yet as the dust settles and life begins to take on some sense of normality, Chloe and her family are faced with the stark realisation of raising a child in rural Australia with a disability. Having endured the harrowing precipice between life and death, the celebrations are short-lived. Now they are faced with a profound question: what happens next? In rural Australia, there are more children grappling with disability than what there is in urban areas. It's a setting where injury, illness and early mortality are undeniably greater. It's a unique setting that has unique challenges that needs unique solutions. For the past 15 years, I've stood witness to these heart-wrenching narratives as a paediatric critical care nurse. I've watched as families teeter at the bedside of their child, willing and longing for them to pull through drained tubes and wires entangling their entire tiny bodies. I've also borne witness to the advances in trauma care, to the advances in medical technology and groundbreaking treatments that we have to keep these kids alive, and yet I am still pondering the same question as Chloe's family. What happens next? It's a question that underscores the collective responsibility of our entire society, not just to keep kids alive, but to ensure that every child, regardless of their ability and regardless of their postcode, has the opportunity to flourish in the face of adversity and to belong to a community that understands and supports their unique needs. Now, you might hear some people say, and maybe you're thinking it today, those kids are lucky to be alive. 50 years ago, that would be an entirely different story. And yes, you are right, except we don't subscribe to luck in the intensive care unit. We don't grant luck that privilege. I've been behind those four walls where I've seen advances in reactive healthcare. We work tirelessly, we roll up our sleeves, and we work hard to save yet another young life. It's a feat that's worthy of celebration, given the immense challenges. But then these families, when they reach the other side, like Chloe's family and countless others reach the other side, and they realise that survival is merely just the beginning. The biggest test lies in thriving. Now, I invite you to embark on a challenge with me. I want you all to close your eyes, and I want you to envision the first image that comes to mind when I say this word. You ready? Disability. Now, for many of you, I'm sure that you have conjured an image of a wheelchair. It is, after all, our most visible sign of disability that we have in our collective conscience. Now, let's try another one. Close your eyes again. Complex medical conditions. For many of you, you may have a blank canvas devoid of any clear mental picture. Why is that? Because complex medical conditions encompasses a wide range of illnesses, injuries and conditions, each with their own unique set of challenges, but all worthy of our recognition and understanding. You see, in Australia, 4.4 million people, or 1 in 5 of us has a disability, but only 4.4% use a wheelchair as their main mode of mobility. So who are the others? For many children with complex medical conditions, once upon a time they would never have had a chance of survival. And now they do survive, but often they go unnoticed and invisible in our communities. Let me paint a picture for you. George and Lucy live in a rural town and they're awaiting their arrival of their anticipated child. As they head to their 20-week scan, the joy and the excitement is absolutely palpable. But when they leave those rooms, they leave with fear, uncertainty and anxiety. Why? Because their unborn son has been diagnosed with a congenital cardiac condition. What does that mean for George and Lucy? It means birthing in the biggest maternity hospital in the state, 4 hours away from their hometown. It means life-saving surgery for their son as soon as he is born, and should he survive that surgery, a lifetime of therapies and supports that are not available in their local community. This is not a unique situation. There are 3,000 babies born annually with congenital cardiac conditions. Many of them face challenges like George and Lucy for the rest of their lives. So why do families in rural areas have such formidable challenges when it comes to raising a child with a disability? Let's look at Chloe's example to understand a little further. Chloe's mother, once a former vet and a strong social contributor, has to quit her job and become the linchpin of Chloe's care. She loses her sense of identity and no longer contributes to society. Chloe's father, a fourth-generational dairy farmer, is now the sole income provider for their family. The instability of the dairy industry compounding his feelings of stress and overwhelming helplessness. As medical costs rise, he becomes a mental health statistic. Chloe's siblings now have to attend boarding school to reduce the burden of care on their mother's already overloaded tasks. They become physically and emotionally detached. And what about George and Lucy? George, an avid researcher, creates spreadsheets and intricate mind maps and has a folder full of peer-reviewed articles trying to understand his son's cardiac condition. Lucy, once a socialite, becomes a recluse and doesn't involve herself in the community anymore, fearful of her son's life. The two communities watch on as these families withdraw from society, not knowing how to help. So these are our challenges, but what do we do for these families, and how do we become a community that can enable them to feel included and supported? Specialised education and training has a transformational impact on these families. Words from an 85-year-old grandmother who recently completed specialised training to help care for her 6-year-old grandson with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome said, "I was once so fearful of my grandson's condition. I had no idea how to piece together all the bits of his very complex puzzle. And now I'm so excited to know how I can help my daughter, his mother, in their ongoing care. I'm excited for the future." So how do we do this then? How do we turn our aspirations into action? There's 3 ways I'm going to leave you with. Firstly, train your local teachers. If Chloe could return to school, it would reduce the burden of care on her mother, it would make her feel included, and it would upskill local teachers who may have other children come into their midst. Secondly, be proactive in your care for these families. Anyone in the community can become a skilled carer. And how does that help Chloe's family? Mum can return to work, it reduces the financial pressure, it stimulates local economy, and it eases the burden of care. We keep jobs in community. And thirdly, be proactive about change. Be advocates for change. Apply for the hundreds of grants that are available to support inclusive play spaces, and accessibility for your public facilities. Be the drivers for change in your own community and try and understand the people who live there. So today you've heard stories about the fragility of life, and you've heard stories about disability and complex medical conditions. And maybe we can see that disability does not discriminate, that we can't choose who faces these challenges. Perhaps it's not the fear of existence of these conditions, but more so in the lack of education and support around them. So go away today and be an architect of change, be an advocate for hope, and be the embodiment of compassion. Shine the light and illuminate the path for these children and their families to foster inclusivity and break down barriers. Form communities where inclusivity is not just a word, but part of our rural legacy. And form communities where we don't just keep kids alive. Thank you.